question that we were asked deals with the false narratives that circulate around Mexican immigrants, and how might we challenge some of the erroneous beliefs that are held regarding Mexican immigrants and or undocumented immigrants. I'm going to talk about it from the perspective of social media. We have this awesome ability to know what is happening anywhere in the world in real time due to social media. We get information very quickly, but it can also become this echo chamber of unsubstantiated opinions, and oftentimes these sound bites are what stick. And so to undo the harms around some of these false narratives, we have to start interrogating our beliefs, becoming more informed about the actual statistics that exist, become more informed around policy and laws, and challenge these sound bites that are out there. And I think this JSL piece helps do those things, to talk about policy and law and to talk about what can we do differently to help change these narratives that are incorrect.
Much of the public now has some familiarity with the controversy surrounding the Trump administration's decision to sunset the DACA program. DACA stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Former President Barack Obama used an executive order to create this program back in 2012, and DACA had two main prongs. First, it provided young undocumented immigrants 2 years of temporary relief from fears of deportation. And then second, it provided them with authorization to work in the United States if they met several requirements, including educational requirements. DACA ultimately covered nearly 800,000 undocumented people. Though Obama was by no means the first president to use the executive order to enact policy change, and though Congress has not passed any major immigration reform since 1996, there's been major political backlash over DACA. And I think we're now seeing the effects of this backlash. The current administration gave DACA recipients a very short timeline to renew their status. This also coincided with there not being enough time for applications to be processed. At this point in time, the October 2017 deadline has now passed, and tens of thousands of young people cannot be sure what their future holds, whether they're able to keep their jobs, or even perhaps more seriously, whether they're now going to become a focus in deportation efforts. The Trump administration's decision to terminate the DACA program is actually one in a series of very concerning decisions that also includes things like promoting the extension and strengthening of the U.S.-Mexico border wall, which could cost up to $1 billion. There's the ramping up of immigration raids and threats to pull federal funding from cities that have declared themselves as sanctuaries for undocumented immigrants. What I think we're seeing is a definite signal that the current administration supports what we might call attrition policy, which means that the strategy is essentially to make life so difficult and untenable for undocumented immigrants that they self-deport. I think this stands in contrast with some of the research that shows and tells us that actually the undocumented immigration population in the United States is not growing, and in fact has stabilized since about 2009. What these policies are doing is I think that they're coming essentially from a place of fear, but I also want to state that we do have reason for hope, and that I think that the DACA decision and others, while they've generated fear, has also generated simultaneously a lot of active resistance. There are a lot of dreamers, DACA recipients, educators, and businesses who are advocating for immigrants' rights and who realize that immigrants' ideas, talents, and rich backgrounds are what the U.S. really needs to be successful and innovative and creative.
I looked at the immigrant issue from an educator's perspective, and my responsibility to help future educators and administrators become more informed and critically aware of how current issues affect them in their profession, and how important it is for them to be aware of these issues in regards to protecting the students that they're serving. So we must arm future educators and administrators, not solely with content knowledge or behavioral applications, but more holistically a view of how the context of the world and the policies around education factor into their daily existence with their students. We are guardians of Plyler and Joe. We are guardians of these children, and we can only act with fidelity and with integrity through knowing this kind of information.